Good morning. How are you?
Good morning. I'm good. I'm good.
Yeah. Do you find this time, well, nobody knows what time we're filming at, but you're 9 o'clock and I'm 12 o'clock. Is that good for you?
Usually if I'm to bed early enough and I'm up early enough, I've got a routine in the morning that sometimes if I hit the snooze button more than once, then this time is a little push for me. But yes, it's all good.
Are you a night owl then?
No, I'm not. I prefer to be in bed usually by 9, sometimes 8:30, on occasionally 8 o'clock. And I'll read for a while. And I do like to get up early. No, I can't stay up late.
Yeah. I
You?
prefer early too. Yeah. Because my family gets up early. Like during the summertime, everybody in the house was up by 4:30, 5 o'clock. They're gone by 5:30. So
That's really early.
that's really early. Right now, Trevor's alarm's at 3:30. And I asked him this morning, I'm like, do you have to get this early, like much longer? And he's like, hopefully today's the last day. So that really cuts
Well,
into
yeah,
sleeping for them.
in my books, that's not early. That's actually the middle of the frickin' night.
I know. I thought of that too. And I slept for 2 more hours till 5:30 because I do a Zoom call with a friend at 6 o'clock in the morning. So, oh yeah. I like 2 hours that felt like, oh my God, I'm sleeping in today. But yeah. How I wanted to ask you quickly how the art crawl went.
The art crawl was so much fun. There were almost 200 venues, which is about double what they had last year.
Wow.
And so I think the distribution of people, was a little less, but we had almost 100 people through, and I had some of the most amazing and heartfelt conversations. It was really, really nice. And
oh, sorry. Keep
yeah,
going.
go
Keep
ahead.
going. No. Keep going. Keep going.
I sold a big piece of art, which was fantastic, and a bunch of books. And my dad sold some of his mobile things. So it was really
Oh,
fun. Yeah,
that's
it was
so
long. It was
nice.
a big peopling day, And so I needed a little recovery time.
Because it was 2 days back to back, wasn't it?
It was 10 till 5, Saturday and Sunday.
That's a
Yeah.
lot. That's a lot. Because when people are in there, you have to be sort of on as well, right?
Totally on. It reminded me back in the days of open house realtor life. But that was usually only for 2 hours,
Yeah.
2 till 4 on a Sunday.
Yeah.
And this was all day. Yeah.
Nice.
Mhm.
I'm looking over at my notes here. Did any childhood memories come up that were positive or not yet?
Not yet. Actually, I completely forgot about that. Yeah, my bad. I was intending to have some conversations with my dad to maybe tweak his memory that would then jog mine. But I didn't.
C'est la vie, as we say in Canada. That's life. It is what it is,
Yep.
right? You
Yep.
well, you guys weren't led in that direction, and that's okay, right? So that must have felt so good to sell a piece. Congratulations. That's amazing.
Thank you. Thank you. It was really reassuring. And I think people loved it. My prices were a little bit high because I'm donating it all for the Freedomville Foundation. So there was a great response and enjoyment of the work. I think for some people it was outside of their budget. So I'll have to rethink that for how I govern myself going forward.
Right. But interestingly, like, how do you put value on something too, right? I mean, how do you
Yeah,
put value on something? So,
I know it's tough.
because maybe you're not wrong for making it the price that it was. It wasn't necessarily, maybe you need to make them higher. Maybe you need to make all the prices higher, right?
Yeah, well, and I was
So
thinking about that, and I will as soon as I can issue a tax receipt. As soon as I get the charitable foundation designation and they can write it off, then there's justification to, at least 30%, maybe 50% higher.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
And then Freedomville Foundation, like, do you want to explain? I think you might have touched on it before, but somebody might not be watching that episode. So
Yeah.
Freedomville Foundation is what?
So I'm creating a new corporation, and I'll apply with Revenue Canada for a charitable designation so that I can write receipts for income tax purposes. And the profits from the foundation will all be donated to mental health.
Oh, nice. Do you have
Yeah.
like a specific place where it's going to go to mental health, or you are still choosing?
I'm open to different things as they come up. My preference would be to have the funds go as closely directed to the end users as possible, as opposed to larger organizations where it all needs to trickle down. One of my first places that I'm going to look into when I'm going down to Mexico in January, which is where I learned that I loved to paint.
Mm.
And I want to support housing for single moms down there.
Wow. Wow. That's nice. I love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. Thanks.
So obviously there's a story there, but we don't have time for it.
Okay, we can come back to that.
Sorry.
That's
I just
okay.
wanted to quickly ask before I talk about what I wanted to talk about today. You've talked about your mom and your dad, and your dad's living with you, and I know your mom's not living with you, but she's alive. So I wanted to clarify, did they divorce? What went on? What's going on there?
Yeah, sure. Happy to talk about that. My parents were getting divorced as I was getting married. So 30 years ago ish, right? I was
Okay.
26 and they got divorced then. So they've been apart for a long time. They both had subsequent relationships, some longer than others. My mom did remarry and her husband passed away. And she is now in a long-term care facility in Burlington, Ontario.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And can I ask, is she aware that you've written a book? When I think of long-term care, I think of dementia. You don't have to tell me what she has, which now I'm freaking asking. It's so rude. But
No. It's all good. It's all good, Caralyn. So
okay.
my mom and I have had a very complicated relationship, as lots of mothers and daughters do. Ours was compounded by some other things starting in my childhood. And we were at a phase where we were not talking. Basically, she had told me word for word to go fuck yourself.
Mm.
And I hadn't spoken to her in over a year when I got a call from her best friend who was living in Mexico. And my mom was down there, who said, I'm pretty sure your mother has had a mild stroke. I need you to get on a plane and come down here and get her. So I
Okay.
did. So I dropped everything. I was down there within 24 hours. Now they were living. So my mom had gone down there to help this friend get through and recover from a major surgery. She was an amputee in a wheelchair with a lot of medical complications, and she had to undergo a significant surgery. And my mom was going to be her caregiver. And she was living in a tiny little village called Ahihi, which is not far from Lake Chapala, that has a large Canadian contingent living and wintering there. But it's not easy to get to, and nobody speaks English. So I flew into Guadalajara and I got a couple of apps that converted English to Spanish, and this was 7 years ago. Maybe they've come a long way, but at the time, they didn't really work. I don't know what they thought I was trying to say. It took me, once I got to Ahihi, it took me almost 3 hours to actually find the little street where they were, because it was all cobblestone, and Bev couldn't get out there in her wheelchair, and my mom was not in a place where she would be able to find her way back. So anyways, I finally found them, got everyone sorted and moved them both to Guadalajara, got Bev through her surgery, hired a bilingual nurse to navigate that process, got my mom into a neurologist and a cardiologist, and she needed to have major surgery on her carotid arteries were completely clogged. She was a ticking time bomb. She had what they called TIAs, some minor strokes. Mm-hmm. And we tried valiantly to convince her to do the surgery in Mexico. She could afford it, but for whatever reason, she refused. So I got Bev organized with another caregiver and got my mom home, started the process again. and she was lined up to have the surgery, and she had a massive stroke the day before her surgery. And that left her with some significant permanent cognitive impairment, and also with a condition called aphasia. So she cannot speak, and it affects the entire language center of the brain. And for everybody, it's a little bit different, but my mom can make no connection. So she can't type on an iPad. She can't communicate.
Does she have her
verbally.
memory?
Yes, her long-term memory is completely intact. She knows who everybody is, and she knows where she is. It's kind of the worst situation. She's got enough permanent cognitive damage that she can't do a lot of the things that she enjoys, like playing the piano and reading books and doing crossword puzzles. But she's got enough of her wits about her to recognize where she is and what's going on.
So she's a prisoner within herself in a way.
Yeah.
Okay, well, now that I want to cry a little bit.
I know it's hard. And and through that, in the first 3 years of it, our relationship was still not good. She still hated me, which I don't take personally. I know she also was doing the best she could, but something shifted after 5 years after her stroke, and our relationship changed. And it sounds strange because she can't talk, but I have an uncanny ability to know what she's thinking and what she wants to say or what she wants to ask. So we have these kind of weird monologue, one-sided conversations where I talk for her and I answer back from me. And we're closer today than we ever have. Now I'm going to cry. We are closer today than we ever have been.
And this has just been in the last 2 years. I'm trying to think timeline wise, like
Yeah.
since you've been to the place, basically.
Yep. Yep.
Interesting.
Yeah. And I know that my energy and my half of the relationship has definitely changed. I have a newfound understanding of what she and everybody else has gone through. So I know that that's had a significant role in the shift of our relationship. I don't resent her anymore. I don't blame her. I'm not mad at her anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
And I think she's also now a lot more accepting of my responses and my behaviors and everything over the years.
It's interesting to me that one of my beliefs is that when you shift, I'm going to kind of use woo-woo language a bit. When you shift frequencies, when you sort of up level, you use the term up level, when you kind of have a clearer understanding of things, people also shift into that reality too. Not that they're shifting, but you elicit that part of them, the sort of the up leveled part as well. And it's interesting to me that since you've done the work and since you've written the book and since you've sort of had your own epiphanies and changes within yourself, that it's sort of opened up a clarity to you between you and your mom that maybe you didn't have before.
Yeah,
like the fact
absolutely.
that you can sort of, you're tuning into her is pretty phenomenal to some extent, really. That's
Yeah. And since you opened that can of worms, I'll jump right in on that and add some more woo woo to the pot. I've also done a lot of energetic work remotely since I've been here in BC for her and for her own healing and releasing of her stuck emotions as well.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah. And that produced a major shift. And just for the whipped cream on top of the woo-woo pudding.
This is it. We're just getting started.
Right? I know. I also have a hypnotherapist that works with my mom and by Zoom. And she has facilitated some pretty freaking amazing results on other struggles that my mom was having. that could be a whole episode.
Yeah, let's save that for another episode, because
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
I have an
It's
explosion of like so many things.
super interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So now that I understand a little bit about that, I just want to go into a little bit about you. We touched last time we touched on shitty beliefs, and you had mentioned you had some shitty beliefs. And one of the things that I find interesting, you also said, I think it was in episode 3, I was going back and looking at them. You'd said at one point, no, I don't want to say that. No, that's not what it was. Where is it? I've lost it now. No, it doesn't matter. Yeah. Well, no, you talked about, I think this was last episode, you talked about it's easier sometimes when you're getting curious about somebody, which is obviously very gracious. In order to understand somebody better, you need to get curious and ask them questions and that kind of thing. But oftentimes we substitute it for doing our own work. That's what you said. And that doing our own work is harder because we have to then come up with the answers. And
Yeah.
so you had come up with some shitty beliefs, and that you felt like were sort of, well, that you felt like our beliefs can keep us hostage. Can you share? You shared some of them last week, but can you just go into why is it important that we understand that we have beliefs and some of them just don't work for us?
Well, the ones that I talk about, Caralyn, are the ones that we adopt in childhood that really get ingrained. They get right into our bones, and they get right into our hearts, and they manifest in all kinds of ways as an adult. And I'm not saying that we need to constantly dwell on the past and our childhood and the shit that happened, because that's not healthy either. But we do need to go back and figure out what happened, what meaning we assigned to it, which led to a shitty belief that we still hang on to, and feel all the feelings and be objective about that belief to overcome it. And then once that's done, then it's done, and it can stay there. And for some of us that had more than one or two things in our childhood, it takes a little while, and sometimes it doesn't happen all at once. But once you've done that, then they no longer play that subconscious, natural, responsive power in our lives. So, those are the beliefs that fuel that shitty voice in our head that says, well, you can't fucking do that. Everyone's going to laugh at you, right? Or they're not going to want to hang around you if they think you like that, right?
Right.
That's the voice that keeps us from truly being who we really are. It's the voice that keeps us afraid. Those shitty beliefs.
Can you give us an example of one? You'd mentioned a few before, but we can always just re-say them. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, for sure. So one of the big ones for me, because I was living for 5 years of my life in a literally a crisis situation that was the primary focus of everybody's resources. There, everybody's time and money and thoughts and prayers, and everything we did was so focused around finding Linda that it became very evident to me as a 6, 7, 8, 9, 10-year-old, those were the years that my needs were not important, right? Given what was happening. And so I internalized that as I had to be completely self-reliant. Don't ask for anything. Don't make life any more difficult than it already currently was. Don't ask for anything. Just don't rock the fucking boat.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Please everybody, stay under the radar. Don't just don't make life any harder. Be small. Don't speak up. Just, I can hide behind the curtain and let them deal with what was really important. And that translated into my adult life in a whole bunch of different ways. But the biggest one would be that I had no boundaries. I didn't even know what boundaries were. I had no voice. I couldn't speak up for myself. I was a fantastic advocate for other people. When I was in real estate, my clients my clients' needs and rights and came first, and I could advocate and fight for those, no problem. And when I became a mom, I could advocate and fight and be a voice and a power for my kids, or for my friends, or for my family. But I had no idea how to do that for myself until I came out of the place and then started practicing. And I'm still practicing. Boundaries are hard. But I've come a long, long way. And I understand now that my needs are every bit as important as yours and everyone else's. And it's not an either or thing. We can all have our needs met, and we all deserve to have our needs met. And I can now believe and ask and do what's required to have my needs met.
Right.
It's been a huge, huge growth in that department.
Yeah. Yeah. Did some of those, you would have had to then learn to cope somehow. Did you have any coping mechanisms in childhood that sort of lasted through your life that you had to then take a look at because that was getting out of control as you got older? Any at all?
Yeah.
Maybe,
How long
maybe
do we
not.
have? How long do we have? Yeah, a lot. So, on a little level, one of the things that I started doing when I was young was pulling out my hair. I started like twirling and tugging, and there's actually a name for it. I think it's called trichotillomania or something. And in extreme cases, people pull their hair out, they pull their eyebrows out, their eyelashes out. I didn't do that as much. Mostly it was my hair, started around the back and then it went around here. And it was the tug, the painful tug on that was in a weird way comforting. And then there's a whole story about how I eventually, and only last year at the age of 60, got a grip on 90% of that behavior. And then on a bigger level, one of my coping mechanisms was denial, probably my biggest one. And I would pretend it wasn't going on, and I would just shove all those feelings down and lock them up, and just didn't deal with them.
Wow.
Which is not a good strategy, because eventually they come out.
The shit hits the fan eventually.
The shit hits the fan, and it finds a crack, and then the shit starts leaking out, and then it just like explodes, which is pretty much what happened to me when I checked myself in.
Well, we're not meant to, like, our coping mechanisms may work a little bit in the short term, but they're not meant to be long-term things. It's meant to like hold you together till you can figure out what
we're
needs to
kids,
change, right? Yeah.
We're kids. We don't have the wisdom and the history or the knowledge to recognize at the time that those coping mechanisms aren't going to hold us in good stead when we have to do some adulting in the real world. We did the best we could, and all kids do. So we can't beat ourselves up for that.
Yeah, no, not at all. Well, that's fantastic. You know what? I want to keep this, I'm trying to keep this tighter. We're at 26 minutes already. So I have 4 questions for you for the rapid fire before we say goodbye. And then we'll pick up next time where we left off here. So,
hit me.
And if I might have repeated some of them because I took them all from the same website. So if I've asked you and I actually haven't remembered that I've asked you, please just tell me, because how rude.
Well, if I remember, yes, I will.
Okay. What is your passion?
My passion is helping people right now and teaching them to love themselves. And on a logistical front, I would say right now, my biggest passion is doing that through my art. It's just so fun for me to create. And I hope that energy and intention is felt from the viewer.
Nice. I love that. What is the best advice you received at work?
At work? Gosh, I've worked for myself for the longest time. Okay, I'm going to say the last thing I did that I sort of attribute as work was when I was part of a workshop to write my book. And the best advice, which was the framework for this workshop, was to put the reader first. So whenever I was considering, do I include this in my book or not, that decision was made based on, does it serve the reader? Does the reader need to know this now? Is it in their best interest to have it?
Oh, interesting. I love that. That would have
Yeah.
definitely helped. What is your greatest strength?
I would say either resourcefulness or resilience.
I knew you were going
Prob-
to say resilience. As soon as you said resourcefulness, I'm like, oh, interesting. She didn't say resilience. Oh, there it is.
yeah. Probably resourcefulness. And it's interesting because I was doing some branding thing about, I don't know, 8 or 9 years ago, and my mom hadn't had her stroke yet, and she also hadn't told me to F off. So we were on speaking terms. And one of the exercises was to ask people who know you well what they thought my greatest strength was. And my mom said resourcefulness. And I think that stems from my childhood of not relying on anybody for anything. At a very young age, I figured that I had to, not I figured, it was fucking reality. I had to look after myself. And so I became very resourceful at figuring out a way to do or get or have or whatever I needed to, because
Wow.
nobody else would or could.
Yeah. How nice to hear your mom say that as well, though.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, truly.
Okay, finally, what's the one thing that could shake your self-confidence?
Oh, different things still. I think it depends on how full I am, you know. If I'm full, then it doesn't, not much will shake my self-confidence, but doing things for the first time is always shaky for me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Anything that I've never done before, um stepping up and having to say something that I know is not going to be well received, those hard conversations, they're still shaky for me, but I'm leaning into them and doing them anyways. And like everything else, the more we do it in practice, then the less scary it is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I find those hard conversations can be made slightly easier if you are feeling better. If you're feeling
For sure.
like I know if I'm upset, do not talk to my husband. It's never going to go well. Or even a kid for the most part. Like it's just never going to go well. Be in a place where you're a little bit more vibrating
Right.
higher. Yeah. But
Yeah.
when I read that one, what's the one thing that could shake your self-confidence? I'm like, maggots for me. Oh my God, we had maggots in the green bin. And I'm like, that's it. We're going to have to move. We're going to have to move. And I put the lid on fast enough that only a few escaped, but I had to kill those few because in my mind, there was going to be many more for some reason. And then I had to wait till somebody came home to clean it up.
Yeah, I hear you. No, it's
And I'm like, fuck, if I was alone, right? If you're alone, you got to clean up the fucking maggots. Like, no thanks.
Yeah, I do. And I have had to. And on that front, when I was in Ontario, I was a very fair weather composter. I thought that the garbage people should come and collect that every other day if they wanted us to do it, because it's just so gross, especially in the summer.
Yeah.
And here is a whole different problem. We've got bears. And so all of the composting, I have to freeze. I can't put it out anywhere. They love it. So even if it's, locked thing. So I have to freeze it. And then the morning of, I pull all the frozen composting bags out and put them down to the road to go.
What a pain in the butt. So really, I think I have it bad in Ontario. It's we're doing our part for the environment, though.
Yes, and that's important.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for meeting with us with me.
Yeah, it
Sometimes
was
it's
great to see you. Okay.
Thanks. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.